Teachers, have you ever taught a legitimate genius? What made them so smart? Have you ever looked at a 6-year-old and thought, this kid is going to change the world? I hadn't, until I met him. It was just another day in first grade. You've got your usual energy bundles, kids who've already memorized sight words, and the ones who still eat paste. But then there was this one boy, quiet, awkward, didn't talk to anyone, always off in his own head. The kind of kid most people write off or label as strange. His parents thought he might be on the autism spectrum. His kindergarten teacher mentioned social development concerns. But I saw something different. Every year, I pick 1 or 2 kids to focus on, not academically, but socially. My goal is to help them bloom. That year, I picked him. I didn't even know how insanely smart he was at the time. He was just this odd little kid with 0 friends and 0 interest in anything we were doing. Until STEM day. We were doing a basic circuit project with Christmas lights and batteries. Most kids were just happy to get a light bulb to blink. But not him. He stared at the components like he was watching the ending of Inception. Then, boom, he wired a perfect circuit and added a switch. That was my first clue. After that day, he devoured every book about electricity and circuits in our tiny school library. He started sketching schematics on notebook paper during recess. I got him a circuit kit to experiment with, and by the end of the year, he had built a working solar-powered motor for the class robot. No exaggeration. While other students glued popsicle sticks together and fought over glitter glue, this boy was literally integrating solar energy into functional machinery, at age 6. The robot itself was a class project. Everyone helped build the body. But the engine, the part that actually brought it to life, was all him. When the motor worked and the little robot started to buzz and move, every kid cheered. He smiled. A real smile. The first one I'd seen all year. He still didn't talk much, but there was a shift. I wrote in his weekly journal, "You're really funny, you know," because he had cracked this deadpan joke that only I had caught. Something about resistance not just being in the wires but in life. After that, he started opening up more. And when I laughed at his jokes, other kids did too. Suddenly, he had friends. They started looking up to him like he was a wizard or something. He went from ghost to guru in a matter of weeks. Years later, I taught a girl who missed an entire unit, like, weeks of material. She came back after her absence, and I thought I'd have to reteach everything. Nope. We sat down for maybe 20 minutes. I explained the core concepts and drew a few diagrams. She nodded politely, asked 2 follow-up questions, then aced the quiz the next day. Not just aced, understood better than anyone else. She didn't memorize. She absorbed. She internalized. She bent time and comprehension to her will. Teaching her was like teaching someone who had read the textbook in a dream and came to class to fact-check me. Let me tell you about the guy who should have been the lead in Good Will Hunting 2, Still Hunting. He was a medical resident I mentored. At first glance, he seemed like your typical overachiever. Until you asked him how many languages he spoke. I asked if he could speak Greek to help with a patient. "I don't speak Greek," he said on Monday. By Wednesday, he was speaking in full Greek sentences. Not tourist Greek. Medical Greek. He had this terrifyingly casual relationship with brilliance. He could learn a new language in a few days, invent solutions out of nowhere, and casually forget his own groundbreaking ideas because he had too many. He once told me, "I had 3 last names before I was 18. My dad's in prison for life. I'm the first in my family to even step foot in a college." He had the mind of a polymath and the past of a street fighter. I once had to explain hospital policy, "You can't hit annoying people in the ER." His response, "But what if they really deserve it?" That's the paradox of genius, it doesn't always come in a neat, nerdy package. Sometimes it wears a hoodie, scowls, and aces every exam without studying. Then there was M, probably the most brilliant student I've ever taught, and also the most maddening. He never paid attention in class. Didn't take notes. Didn't follow my formulas. But he always had the right answer. He scored 5s on AP tests for classes he never even took. One day, he showed up with an old smoke detector and a CRT TV monitor because he wanted to experiment with radioisotopes. I had to shut that idea down real quick. He approached everything with raw curiosity. Not, how do I pass this test, but how does this entire system of knowledge work? His essays were insane, in a good way. His English teacher said his one-turned-in assignment was the most original analysis she'd ever read. He didn't just grasp concepts. He reshaped them. He wasn't arrogant. Just misunderstood. He thought everyone was like this. When classmates didn't get things instantly, he was confused, not condescending. We tried to push him into early graduation, but he didn't have support at home. So we nudged him toward CTE classes, mechatronics, welding, auto tech, just to keep him challenged. Genius needs fuel. Otherwise, it just burns from the inside out. There are smart kids, and then there's my friend growing up, let's call him, the living encyclopedia. This dude could read something once and it would be burned into his memory forever. Like photographic, freaky recall. Any subject, history, chemistry, math, poetry, he didn't just remember the answers, he remembered the exact pages and footnotes. We'd be talking and he'd be like, page 412 of the 1996 edition said X. Bro was casually built like ChatGPT before AI was cool. He cruised into Harvard without breaking a sweat. After that, we lost touch, but last I heard, he became a judge. No surprise there. You could have thrown him into any field, medicine, law, theoretical physics, and he would have mastered it just for fun. Here's something I didn't expect to see in high school, an 18-year-old tutoring a second grader on vector calculus. True story. The high school genius was a year ahead of me, a kind and insanely smart math prodigy. The kind of guy who'd get perfect test scores just for sport. Parents from the nearby elementary school heard about him and hired him to tutor their kid. Their 7-year-old kid. I peeked in once after school. On the whiteboard. Paraboloid gradients. The little kid. Absorbing it like it was Sesame Street. The older one said, that kid's brain has way more clock cycles than mine. Imagine hearing that from him. Freshman in high school. 15 years old. Already enrolled in college organic chemistry, for fun. He wasn't just ahead, he was lapping us. Straight A's, top of the class, perfect tests. But in the lab? Clumsy as hell. Once dropped a pipette and missed the tray by a foot. He'd laugh, shrug, and say something like, I calculate better than I catch. And somehow, it made sense. He used my phone every day to call his mom to pick him up. Just imagine finishing organic chemistry before puberty and still needing mom to pick you up from class. I shared math lectures with someone who I swear was AI in a human shell. He was already done with undergrad and master's level math by junior year. Our elite university didn't know what to do with him, so they sent him to our advanced math track. And then, he disappeared for 16 weeks. Why? To play video games. Came back for midterms. Aced them. Then the final. Also aced it. Oral exam. Flawless. Like, no notes, no effort, just brilliance pouring out. He even published research in pure mathematics as an undergrad. And the wildest part? He acted like none of it mattered. His professors sometimes asked him for help. He floated through the world with this surreal intelligence while the rest of us struggled to keep up. Naturally, some classmates hated him. Understandably. Over my 12 years of teaching high school math, everything from algebra I to AP Calc to computer science, I've met plenty of gifted kids. But only a few crossed the line into legit genius. You know it when you see it. They don't just get the material. They feel it. They'll solve a problem in a way you've never seen before. They'll ask questions that make you think. And they're not just good at school, they're intellectually restless. They want to know everything about everything. They don't just memorize formulas. They ask why the formula works, who invented it, and how it applies to the real world. They challenge your teaching, not to be jerks, but because they crave deeper answers. Sure, some were socially awkward. Some were misunderstood. But what tied them all together? An unshakable drive to understand. Let's shift gears. My favorite history professor once told me about this kid, let's call him Gabe. Not good at math, not a science whiz. But when it came to historical analysis, absolute beast. During a lecture on Nazi Germany, the prof was setting the stage, basic context stuff. One student asked, why would Germany elect Hitler after he went to prison? Gabe raised his hand and casually dropped 4 contemporary German sources and international context. He cited fascist sympathizers in other countries, economic desperation, and propaganda methods, all in one breath. The professor? Stunned. To this day, he still uses Gabe's sources in his lectures. Some geniuses work with equations. Gabe reprogrammed historical context. She wore tattered clothes. Sat in the back. Didn't speak much. Avoided everyone. She looked haunted. I subbed for her AP biology class for 4 months. At first, I thought she was checked out. Never did homework. Never raised her hand. Spent most of her time reading dense college-level books or drawing in sketchbooks. Until test day. She crushed every exam. Essays that were perfectly articulated. Diagrams that rivaled textbook illustrations. All while being the fastest to finish. It wasn't just that she was smart, it was like she couldn't not understand. She was so far ahead that school felt irrelevant to her. Last I checked, she owns her own company now. After years of near dropout vibes, she bounced back hard. Because genius doesn't always follow a straight line. Sometimes it zigs, then zags, then explodes into success. Some students blow your mind with their grades. Others, with their questions. I had 2 who did both. One was a math savant, off the charts IQ, could solve complex problems before I finished writing them on the board. The other? A born philosopher. He'd write these research papers that made you pause, reread, and whisper, damn, under your breath. Both of them were insanely curious. They didn't wait for the curriculum, they devoured knowledge on their own. The math kid went on to study electromechanical engineering and published multiple research papers before he could legally rent a car. The philosophy kid? Writing his own books now. What made them genius level? Yeah, probably genetics. But also a pure obsession with learning. Like breathing for them. I once mentored a student researcher in my lab who, frankly, made me feel like the intern. He took more credits than anyone else, 26 at a time, and still managed straight A's. While most undergrads struggled through the basics, this kid was acing graduate-level courses. Professors came to him for help. He had that classic absent-minded genius energy. Would forget a beaker, but solve differential equations in his head. Very ADD, always mid-conversation and then boom, gone, chasing a thought like a squirrel chasing lightning. He didn't just understand concepts. He reconstructed them. Created new ones. His passion. Physical chemistry. Loved the intersection of math, code, and molecular chaos. Was he quirky? Definitely. Was he brilliant? Without a doubt. Okay, I'm gonna brag for a second. I had this student, let's call him Jason. Jason was like if ambition had a human form. He played varsity basketball and soccer, led 3 academic clubs, spoke Spanish like a native, and was class valedictorian. He taught himself Spanish I before walking into my Spanish 2 class and basically schooling me on grammar rules I'd forgotten. He asked deep questions. Not just textbook ones, but how does this word reflect the cultural context of 17th century Spain, type questions. You know, normal teen stuff. And he wasn't just smart, he was cool. Athletes liked him. Nerds liked him. Emo kids liked him. He once beatboxed at a talent show and quoted Don Quixote in the same day. He got a full ride to the best college in the state and went on to study abroad in 3 different countries. If you told me he was running for office tomorrow, I'd believe you. Some kids are just destined to thrive. Some kids are born with advantages. Others earn every step of their journey. A student I knew came to Australia from Somalia at age 15. No formal education. Parents deceased. He walked his 2 younger siblings out of the country using a map he found. Yeah. Just sit with that for a second. Within 4 years, he learned fluent English, mastered high school level math, and graduated with honors. He's now studying computer science at university. If he had grown up in Australia, he'd be one of those viral, graduated college at 12 stories. But instead, he's just quietly building a life that should have been impossible. That's a different kind of genius, resilience meets intellect. I once performed with a percussionist who forgot his music an hour before the show. Big issue, right? Wrong. He pulled out a blank sheet of manuscript paper and recreated the entire auxiliary percussion part from memory. Dozens of instruments, time changes, rests, it was all there. Not only was it accurate, it was perfectly timed. No score. No cheat sheet. Just brainpower. And that was just one day. He did this kind of stuff all the time. Whether it was classical music, jazz improv, or experimental soundscapes, he could deconstruct and rebuild them in his mind like they were Lego sets. Some geniuses are born in labs. Some behind drum kits. Some students memorize. Some understand. A rare few do both at warp speed. I had this one girl who would pick up on my lesson before I even finished introducing it. Most kids were still flipping their notebooks open while she was already thinking 2 chapters ahead. She didn't just ace tests. She recontextualized the material into other fields, like using math to interpret literature or connecting biology to psychology. You didn't teach her. You activated her. She hated being called a genius because she thought it implied she didn't work hard. But the truth? She worked and she was brilliant. That combo? Unstoppable. One student I never taught directly, but he was a school legend. As a kindergartner, he appeared on Jay Leno because he knew everything about dinosaurs. And I don't mean, T-Rex is big. I mean full-blown paleontology, Latin names, fossil history, you name it facts. He once corrected a teacher's pronunciation of Parasaurolophus, casually. He'd walk into any classroom, start explaining something random and deep, and everyone would just listen. Not because he was trying to show off, but because his curiosity was contagious. Last I heard, he was studying paleontology at a private college. Called it. Last story. I was subbing in a middle school math class when I met a kid who blew my mind. He was quiet, awkward, sitting in the back doing square roots without a calculator. Not just estimating, nailing them. So I tested him. Threw out random 3 and 4-digit multiplications. He answered before I could finish typing them into my phone. I asked him how he did it. He smiled shyly and said, I have a little room in my head with whiteboards. I just go in there and solve stuff. That image stuck with me. Not just because it was cool, but because it was true. His brain was a whiteboard. And he had the keys. So yeah, geniuses don't come in one shape. Some are engineers in diapers. Some are poets in hoodies. Some walk across countries with a paper map. Some just quietly rewrite the rules while the rest of us are still learning them. What they all have in common: an unshakable thirst for something more. For answers. For impact. For understanding the world not just as it is, but how it could be. And if you've ever taught one, you never forget them. If you guys known any geniuses, let me know in the comments. For now though, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day or night wherever you are.